Fabulous. So welcome everybody. A big PHA welcome to you all. Thank you for giving up your time to listen to our speaker tonight and to be learning even more, which is wonderful. Tonight's speaker is Eve Gilmore, and she is semi-retired, a wide variety of credentials. She's a naturopath, a homeopath, a nutritionist. She's going to be talking to us about energy modalities. She's also a writer and speaker on a variety of health issues. And tonight she's going to be talking to us about the science of energy medicine. So thank you, Eve, and welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's joined today. My inspiration for putting this talk together was that I wanted to let people know that there's sound science and a lot of research behind energy medicine. And that's not something you get to hear about. It has the reputation for being a little bit woo-woo, but that definitely isn't the case. Until relatively recently, there was no division between science and spirituality. There was just a philosophy of life. And people just tried to understand what we were, what the universe was, and they looked at things from a wider view until relatively recently, the time of Newton and Descartes, when materialism came in, and reductionism, which is the belief that if you break everything down into its smallest part, you'll understand it. But that's been shown to be untrue. It's helpful to break things down so that we can understand how they work, particularly the body. But there's more. We then need to look at things holistically. And the reason this is important is that the health system that we have in the mainstream at the moment is based on ideas that were formulated in the 17th century, and it hasn't kept pace with the knowledge, particularly in quantum physics. Before we start, I just want to give you some amazing facts about the body that cannot be explained by biochemistry. Biophysics is the study of how energy affects the body. And this is what is known. There's more, but these are just this is just a little taster for you. The body follows a blueprint for healing and growth. It has sensors that subconsciously detect electrical, magnetic, and other energies. And things like entrainment with nature's cycles, circadian rhythms, seasons, the moon, do not originate at the biochemical level. The biochemistry is under the command of energetic signals. Now, we were all taught that glands release hormones, they travel around in the blood, they dock onto a receptor on a cell, get into that cell, and then provoke some sort of change within that cell. Well, as far back as the 1990s, it was found that that was far too random and would take too long. You'd be waiting weeks for a hormone to find a cell. They know that hormones find receptors through radar, and they don't even need to get into the cells. They transmit the information into the cells. And cells use light, known as photons, to generate energy. Now, ATP is a backup system. ATP isn't produced in enough quantity to keep the cell functioning, let alone carry out whatever duties that cell is supposed to be carrying out. The body is a hologram, and that's how polarity therapy, reflexology, iridology, etc. work. and it will synchronize with stronger energies. And we are powered by subatomic energy. The heart generates electricity carried by ions in the blood, and this generates a magnetic field around the body. Electrons flow through collagen fibers, generating electricity. And you may not have heard of proticity. That's when protons, light, flows through water. It's another energy system that the body uses. And the heart generates emotions that go out to infinity. So where do we end and others begin? This is a quote from Georgi, a biochemist who won the Nobel Prize in 1937 for the discovery of vitamin C. Even though he was a biochemist, he had many insights about energy, which preempted more recent discoveries. And he said, in every culture and in every medical tradition before ours, healing was accomplished by moving energy. We live in an adaptive, ordered informational field. So what have other scientists got to say about this? Well, Max Planck, who you may have heard of in relation to quantum physics, said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. Everything we talk about, everything we regard as existing, postulates consciousness." The study of energy in scientific circles is called quantum physics, but it challenged all the laws of biology and physics. And this is why the early quantum physicists turned to spirituality. Einstein believed in this energy field, and both he and Tesla said they downloaded their information. It didn't originate with them. It sometimes came in dreams, and then they set about proving it. So Einstein called this the field. He said there's no empty space, there isn't a vacuum, there's an ocean of microscopic vibrations in which everything is connected, a life force, a collective consciousness, and every living being is fundamentally a pocket of energy, exchanging information. Living things emit weak radiation from a quantum information exchange, and this is the driving force of all biological processes. And this was channeled by Tina Spalding from Einstein, and he said, "I had a serious meditation practice, communication with my guides. I was fed formulas and mathematical theorems that were not mine. I merely brought them into the world." And the idea of an energy field, and the reason we're looking at this is that if you're going to understand how energy medicine works, you need to understand a little bit about energy. They say that a miracle is something you don't understand. Well, the field explains Einstein's spooky action at a distance, which is where something could be miles away from something else, but they both react to a stimuli at the same time. If you go beyond the 3D world of gas, liquids, and solids, which we've been told is the sum total of reality, the so-called laws of physics change, and intuition, predicting the future, synchronicity, healing, remote healing, and other phenomena become explicable through the medium of an energy field. And it's not just gas, liquids, and solids. There are two other states, which is where the action really is. The field is made of something called ether. This is Tesla's primary substance, filling all space. And ether is the fifth state. there's no matter, there's no material in it. It's just frequency. And it's from ether that the 4 other states evolve. The next one is plasma, which is electrified gas. And then you come down to gases, liquids, and solids. You may have heard of Rupert Sheldrake. He was a former fellow at Clare College, Cambridge. He's a biologist. And he talked about the morphogenic field as giving rise to all forms. And he was well known. You may have come across him. He did experiments where he proved that dogs knew when their owners were coming home, and there had to be an informational field for them to have that ability. And when he said this, he published in Nature magazine to a damning editorial. He was ridiculed, and Nature magazine described his book as a book for burning. But it's often the case that when a new scientific concept is put forward and encounters such violent rejection, it can be a sign that something important has happened. And that's a quote from a biophysicist who's researched energy medicine called James Oshman. There's a link there. If you're interested, you can watch Rupert Sheldrake's banned TED talk. And in this book, The Science Delusion, which has recently been updated, he dismantles the dogma of scientism. And he talks about science being like a religion because it's so set in the materialistic dogma. And these are the 10 challenges that he talks about in his book. And you'll see that these are all beliefs that they've been disproven by advances in physics, but these are beliefs upon which the pharmaceutical and surgical model is based. Another scientist who was very interested in energy was Tesla. He invented a free energy transmitter using scalar, and he established the existence of energy fields. And he said the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it'll make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. If you wish to understand the universe, think of energy, frequency, and vibration. So we've established that there's an energy field and that it's called ether. What is it made of? Well, it's arranged into basic geometric patterns that you find throughout the whole of creation. And these patterns are the platonic solids. They all fit in to a circle. And when you have repetitive patterns, they're called fractals. And one healing modality is life alignment. Life alignment is a system of healing which uses magnetic cards that have been potentized on various points in the body, which have been identified through muscle testing or dowsing to have energy blocks. And it associates whatever emotion has been identified as causing that block, and it then clears it by using these cards which are spun in a vortex. And vortex is very significant, particularly in healing. And on this diagram, you can see that these vortex points, the ones down the middle, are the main chakras. There are lots of others and smaller chakras, but they're all on intersections between vortex points. Chakras can be over or under energized. And you can see the diagram on the right shows the chakras are paired, except the root and the crown chakra are paired with one another, which is really quite interesting. Chakras are like transformers, and they take in this energy from the ether and enable the body to utilize it. And the other diagram there shows how the energy flows up and down through the center of the body, connecting the chakras. And you may recognize the shape there. It's a double helix, which is found repetitively throughout creation and is the shape of DNA. So the chakras develop at different stages of life, starting from gestation with the root chakra. And if this isn't navigated successfully, if a baby is left to cry, for example, it might have fear about the world not being a safe place, maybe anxiety, and the root chakra may not be fully grounded into the earth and into the person, grounded into their body. The sacral chakra is just above the root chakra, and this is where the baby starts moving and exploring the world and discovering pleasure. And if that's not navigated correctly, you can end up with people who feel guilty if they're relaxing or are workaholics, and don't have a great enjoyment of life and a great sense of who they really are. The solar plexus, which develops between 18 months and 4 years, is about how we become a sovereign being, how we recognize that we are a self individual from everybody else. And many of us don't get through this very well either, and have programs running about obedience, fear of authority, and so on. The heart chakra is about acceptance. The throat chakra is about speaking our truth and being heard. And the brow, which kicks in during adolescence, is about our connection with intuition and our higher self. And the crown is developing throughout life. And that's about wisdom and self-knowledge. Renaissance artists described this divine proportion in the body. Now, we said earlier that fractals are repeating patterns of these platonic solids. And that's a piece of broccoli on the left. That shape, seashells, the human ear, crop circles, cannot be created by anything other than waves of energy. And they repeat according to a mathematical pattern. This is a life alignment restore card, which is about restoring something to a healthier state. And you can see the patterns there. The repetition occurs according to a mathematical sequence called the Fibonacci sequence, and it underpins all of creation. Each number is the sum of the two before it. So 1 and 2 makes 3, 2 and 3 makes 5, 5 and 3 makes 8, and so on. And some homeopaths use this in deciding which potencies they're going to use. And Tesla also identified a mathematical pattern, which were the numbers 3, 6, and 9. Nikolai Kozyrev was an astrophysicist, and he recognized these patterns. He was a prodigy. At 20, he had degrees in physics and maths, and he was a professor at 28. But Stalin imprisoned the scientists, afraid that they'd see through his propaganda, and he spent 11 years in a concentration camp. And during that time, he noticed that bacteria grew in these perfect spirals, and he realized that spiraling energy was in all life forms, that the Earth's rotation emits torsion waves that propel it through space, and these waves form a double helix. So what's the relevance of all of this to health? Well, I mentioned life alignment using vortex, and that the chakras were shaped like vortexes. Now, this diagram shows that we have an energy field around us. The outside of it is made of plasma, and the inside is made of ether. And vortex pulls energy in through the crown chakra and earth energy up through the root chakra. These are entry points. This can be blocked if you're wearing rubber-soled shoes, which were introduced in the 1970s. And electromagnetic radiation can cause a bit of a blockage above the crown chakra. But this toroidal shape is found in all living beings. We call it the human biofield, or the aura, or the energy field. The sun's is called the heliosphere, the earth's the magnetosphere. They're all in this toroidal shape. And some physicists think the universe is shaped like this too. It's a sort of donut shape. It's the most efficient optimization of energy. It's using vortex energy, which is a free energy system. And the body is no exception. And I'm just going to show you a little video about vortex. And I had this verified because not all scientific circles accept this, but it makes more sense to me than the idea of gravity. Not sure why that, here we go. Here we go. Sorry. And vortex is the free energy system that our body uses. We've been taught that the heart pumps the blood around the body. This was an idea first put forward in 1628 by William Harvey, who thought the heart looked like a pump when he was cutting up dead bodies, and it hasn't been revised since, in spite of the fact that engineers have said it isn't possible. And we now know that the blood moves around the body at different speeds, the fastest when it leaves the heart, and stopping altogether in the capillaries for the exchange of nutrients and gases and the collection of wastes. And then it very slowly starts to move again through the venous system back to the heart. And what the heart actually does is it vortexes the blood, and it releases rather than pumps. It releases because of the buildup of pressure into the artery system. And so this is a really efficient way that blood moves around the body, and it explains how the brain, when we're standing up, is supplied with enough blood to function. Eileen Day McCusick got a PhD for mapping the energy field around the body. And she is a sound therapist. And it's very interesting. She got into this by accident. She was running a massage business, and she found that when she worked on certain muscles, people released the same emotions and the same memories. And she was playing around with a tuning fork. And this is just a very brief summary of what she discovered. She actually has written 2 books about this. And as I say, she got a PhD. She found that what's happening to us now is recorded in our energy field closest to the body. And what happened when we were born is furthest out. And in her book, she talks about how she's able to identify at what age people had traumas. And not only that, she's also mapped where different emotions are found within the energy field and different traumas are held. And you can see guilt and shame around the area of the solar plexus and the sacral chakra. And it's interesting that this correlates with what we know about chakras from other modalities. And she uses tuning forks to clear energy blockages within the biofield and to release negative emotions. And this biofield has been measured. The solid science behind this, you can call it an aura, but scientists call it a biofield. And you may be surprised to know that it's been measured since the 1960s. And on this slide, I've listed some of the most well-known researchers in the field who've discovered various things, sound and light coming from cells. And Dr. Beverly Rubik at UCLA, you'll see quite a lot of it is happening at UCLA, has developed her own biofield hypothesis. And Dr. Tiller, Professor Emeritus of Materials Science, it's interesting that he spent his life 50 years researching consciousness. Now we're going to look at another way energy is found in the body. It's not just around us. Our body isn't within an energy field. Our body has energy inside it as well. And our body emits frequencies. Our cells listen to our thoughts. And if you have fear and negative thoughts, the cells will shut down and stop taking in very much in the way of nutrition. Everything has a frequency, including diseases, and these were measured by Raymond Royal Rife. And you may be familiar with Rife machines, which generate these frequencies. When we get ill, our own signature frequency becomes eclipsed by the frequency of the disease. And then we start manifesting the symptoms of that disease. And that's called a phase shift. And we may say, when we start feeling better, even though we've still got symptoms, I'm starting to feel myself again. And that's when the disease frequency has left and we're re-establishing our own frequency. And here I've just listed a few other pioneers of energy medicine, all very well respected and published in the literature, but discredited when they started getting into the realms of energy medicine. So what scientists have found is that our body is not made up of separate systems, but a continuous dynamic web with no centralized control and no hierarchy. It depends on the integrated activities of all the components. And every part, right down to the nucleus of every cell, is connected through this network, which is called the living matrix. And it's found in the fascia, the connective tissue, the extracellular matrix, the acupuncture meridians, and the perineural nervous system, which is a part of the nervous system that bypasses the brain. And this system generates electricity from electrons, proticity from light, electromagnetic fields from the quantum field. And it's now thought that all disease starts with blockages within this system. And it's a bit like the operating system of a computer. And this living matrix produces complex harmonics of vibrational information, and they travel via the acupuncture meridians to and from the cells. And this is not involving the nervous system. And the acupuncture meridians contain liquid crystalline resonant pathways. They're like a fiber optic network. And this matrix has consciousness, sentience, decision-making, and memory, but the system can be shut down by fear. So liquid crystals, this is what's found in fiber optics. It's found throughout the body in the living matrix, and it's also what the DNA is made of. And you can see here this toroidal double helix shape that we find repetitively throughout creation. So DNA is like a receiver and transmitter. It's a fiber optic, and it produces torsion waves. And it's not static. It's moving all the time, vortexing energy. And crystals themselves are used in healing because they generate their own electrical fields. And so they're very resonant with what the body itself does. And when you're stretching the connective tissue, or when it's compressed, when you do yoga or qigong or have a massage, this affects how this living matrix transmits energy. And the whole body knows, even if just one small part is moving. We've just got to throw out, to understand this, the old idea of the cell, which is represented on the left, where we're told it's a bag of salty water and there are biochemical reactions going on in it. Well, as far as I know, this is still being taught in medical schools. It's an image we're all familiar with. But as far back as 1974, the Nobel Prize was awarded for the discovery of a process called fractionation, which enabled scientists to look at the smallest parts of the cells And that's when they realized they were discarding the most important bits. And they found that the interior of the cell was not crowded, and it was crowded and not a dilute solution. And the image on the right shows the nucleus, and then it shows the cell, and then it shows the membrane around the cell. And what you'll see are these little hair-like projections, which are called integrins. And these connect to the acupuncture meridians. So if something happens in one part of the body, every cell will get the message via this network of fiber optic crystals, even right down to the nucleus. And inside the cell, this is how it works. You have this structure of microtubules, and they not only give the shape to the cell, but they too are liquid crystals. And this is a semiconductor information network that connects every single cell. And this is how we can do things like learn to dance, or play sport, or learn to play a musical instrument. If we were waiting for a message to come down from the brain via the nervous system to a muscle, we wouldn't be able to coordinate and do these sorts of things. And as I said earlier, this system has memory, it's able to learn. So when you practice playing an instrument or dancing, for example, or a sport, that system is learning and remembering how you do it. And that's how you get better and better with practice. You build up energetic pathways, and movement is accomplished by a dynamic interplay between all the different parts. We're now going to look at one of the most researched modalities of all, and that is grounding. Grounding is where you walk barefoot on the earth. And modern life, being in buildings, being in an urban environment, wearing shoes, separates us from this flow of electrons from the earth. But the body is really dependent on information from the ground to tell it what's going on outside, to give it information about the environment. And the electron transfer that comes up through the feet when you do grounding synchronizes your body's electrical potential with the Earth's and stabilizes your own energy systems. And you may have had the experience of going somewhere very busy, like a shopping mall, where everybody's walking about with a mobile, and all the cash tills are connected to Wi-Fi, and you come out of these places feeling very buzzy. Well, what's actually happened is that the ions in your blood have been charged with this electromagnetic energy and have become negative, and going into nature will correct that. So is aging an electron deficiency? Because the living matrix rapidly delivers electrons to quench free radicals. It's also an antioxidant system. So if there's a blockage in the matrix, then you can get tissue damage. Or if there aren't the electrons, if you're not in contact with nature, there could be tissue damage because of this lack of antioxidant activity from being in contact with the earth. So now we're going to look at the research behind homeopathy. Obviously, I'm not looking at all the research into every modality, but homeopathy is has been extensively researched. I'm just talking about two scientists here. But first, I'll just for anyone who doesn't know, homeopathy is a way of delivering energetic information into the body. And you don't actually need to take a remedy. It can be sprayed around you. It can be put in the bath. It can be inhaled. It can be transmitted from a distance. And as we said earlier, everything has its own signature frequency, including us, and so do diseases. And homeopathy uses the frequency, but it then potentizes, which means dilutes, and turns the substance, the remedy, into varying levels of energy, with the highest potencies not having any of the material dose in them at all. Biologists and chemists excuse me, have a hard time accepting this because it works on the quantum and not the molecular level. But it's hard for us to believe that herbalism, homeopathy, and naturopathy and electrical devices were mainstream. All doctors were taught at medical school one of those disciplines until 1910, when Rockefeller brought in the pharmaceutical industry and has convinced everybody that that's mainstream medicine. But the fact is that most drugs are made from petrochemicals, not surprising, because he was an oil magnate. And over the space of a year or two, all of this was crushed. And medical schools today are financed by the pharmaceutical industry. So Fritz Alfred Popp was a well-respected professor on track for the Nobel Prize when discoveries about energy set him against the biochemical narrative. He discovered that all carcinogens block and scramble light, that the body needs light to repair itself and to keep itself healthy, and that health is defined by coherence within the frequencies generated by the different organs and the cells, and that light from food is dissipated throughout the living matrix, providing energy. Now, you won't find many photons in processed food. He found that the more natural foods were higher in this energy. And these photons switch on body processes and they respond to frequencies, and that DNA is a major storer and emitter of light. This is when Popp's career took a nosedive. He expected to be lauded for finding a cure for cancer. He found that biology is driven by quantum processes, and he proved the existence of biorhythms by measuring changes in the light emissions. And you may remember we looked earlier at the Fibonacci sequence, and he found the biorhythms followed this sequence at 7, 14, 32, 80, and 270 days. He found synchronicity in the intensity of light between left and right sides of the body. And of course, we can lose that if we're not healthy. And some homeopathic remedies will be right-sided or left-sided remedies. And he discovered that these emissions of light follow day, night, and seasonal biorhythms as well. And that all cancer patients had lost natural rhythms. They'd become incoherent. They'd lost their connection to the world. But of course, discovering a simple cure for cancer with light was not going to go down very well. They weren't good career moves for a credible scientist, and he found himself unemployed and professionally discredited. He found that the biophoton emissions go up in stress because the body's trying to return to normal, and that photons from battery eggs were less coherent than from free range, and the healthiest food had the most coherent and lowest intensity of photons, and that health is associated with low light emissions. The exception to that is MS. And in doing this, he provided scientific credibility for energy medicine, including homeopathy. The most well-known researcher into homeopathy was Jacques Benveniste, and he discovered the ability of water to carry memory. And he was another high flyer like Pop. He was also predicted the Nobel Prize, but his career was derailed by the accidental discovery that water carried memory. And he inadvertently found himself endorsing homeopathy. At first, he resisted, he couldn't believe his findings. So he sent his experiments to 5 laboratories in 4 countries over 4 years, asking them if they could reproduce them, which they could every single time. So he published in Nature in 1988, again to a damning editorial, and he was professionally discredited as well, because he proved what Pop had theorized, that every molecule has a frequency. And what he was doing was testing dilutions of antibodies on allergy cells. So he was using antibodies that had been potentized. And the more dilute, the greater the effect, especially if there were no molecules left at all, which is a pure homeopathic remedy. And he realized this could only occur due to information transmission. So he was discredited, he lost his job, he was accused of mental health issues, but in the spirit of a true scientist, he wanted to know more about quantum biology, even though it cost him his job, reputation and career, and some say his life. He found that cells communicate through frequency. Reactions were believed to be through the exchange of chemicals, but that's now been shown to be too dependent on chance and too slow. He did thousands of studies, he recorded frequencies, and he played these frequencies back, and they influenced the cells. And he found that the cells would synchronize, creating a cascade of electromagnetic impulses. And he was able to prevent blood clots in plasma through playing the frequency of heparin. He showed that communication wasn't affected by distance, and he even emailed the signals and sent them to America on discs, and they worked every time. So atoms and molecules work as a collective within coherent domains, which means an energy field. Water molecules polarize around a charged particle and store its frequency. This is how homeopathy works. And you can often add remedies to water and just drink them. And this process is sped up by succussing, where you shake the remedy. And nowadays we have machines that do this. And it orders discordant energy into coherent energy in the form of light. And this process is known as superradiance. And the water in cells is structured, it's in a gel state. This is known as the 4th phase of water. And in this state, it's a conductor of wave information. And he also found that water would amplify the signal. And his research, as I said, has been replicated around the world. And homeopathy itself has been endorsed by double-blind, placebo-controlled trials. And this is just a picture of some homeopathic remedies. It's Kirlian photography, and Kirlian photography photographs plasma. This is the 4th state, and plasma is ionized gas. It's outside the range of visible light. So we're moving on now from homeopathy to just look at another well-researched modality, acupuncture. And there are thousands of papers demonstrating the physiological effects of acupuncture. MRI scans have shown the meridians are located in the fascia and connective tissue of the living matrix. And ultrasound 3D imaging has shown that the acupoints where the needles are inserted tighten and rotate when they're needled, that there's low resistance at the points. And Professor Becker, who we mentioned earlier, discovered that the meridians were electrical transmission lines. So we are electrical beings. This is where it gets really interesting. You remember our platonic solids that underpin all creation? Well, ultrasound microscopy on acupuncture points has shown them to be shaped like a polyhedron. And other points along the meridian that aren't acupuncture points don't show this shape. And these points rotate in sequence with a gap of a few seconds between each one in response to needling. And as I said, you don't find this in non-acupuncture points. Needle rotation creates tension, and ultrasonic imaging shows the upper half of the point rotates in the opposite direction to the lower, and that a vortex forms around the needle when rotated. Now, this is what chakras do. They rotate in different directions and they form a vortex. So is it possible that acupuncture points are just mini vortexes acting like transformers along the body's electrical circuits? And ultrasound has shown that all of these points are found within the connective tissue where the living matrix is. And when acupuncture needles are rotated, signals are passed along these meridians. This is a picture of an acupuncture point with a needle in it. And when the needle is rotated, you get this image made of light shaped like a four-leaf clover, and that increases in size the longer the needle is left in. I think that's absolutely mind-blowing. And they've also been able to measure that when a point is needled, the particular part of the brain that relates to that point will be activated. So the living matrix is a continuous, interconnected semiconductor quantum network that runs via meridians. There's no force used. It's a free energy system. It's powered by vortex because the electricity and the proticity move along these meridians in a vortex shape, just as the blood vortexes through the blood vessels. And this doesn't require any force. It happens naturally. And that's because of this vortex shape. So every part of the body, as we said earlier, is connected right down to the nucleus of the tiniest, most far away cell. And if one part is in trouble, the beauty of this system is that the whole system can compensate. So it will know that bit's gone down. We'll have to step in and help out. And disease occurs in the weakest part when the ability to do that has run out. So water is very important for this network. So we're just going to finish by looking at a special type of water called Quinton water, which some of you may be familiar with. I want to mention it because its effects are primarily within the living matrix. It was discovered by Dr. Quinton in 1897. And the picture at the top shows a vortex bloom in the ocean. And these are hundreds of miles apart and hundreds of miles wide. And great blue whales and their calves travel thousands of miles to feed on them because they are full of nutrients. And it's thought that our cells may have evolved from these plankton blooms. So what these plankton do is they stir up a vortex from the rich mineral beds of the ocean floor. And the water contains not only the minerals, but amino acids, RNA, antioxidants, polysaccharides, and fatty acids. And this vortexing, this stirring up, is a bit like homeopathic succussion. It potentizes the water. And this Quinton water contains trace elements in exactly the same form that the body needs them. You can get it from Amazon, but I would be incredibly wary when you first start using it, because just a few drops will get the living matrix coming online, and the first thing it will do is start to get rid of any toxins that have been held because it wasn't able to do that. It comes in two forms, the isotonic and the hypertonic, which is used by athletes. This is a much more concentrated form, and they use it to improve performance and shorten recovery time. And Dr. Quinton was way ahead of his time in suggesting that the minerals were transformed into crystals needed for communication in the body. Considering he was around in the 19th century, that's pretty amazing. And there are people using this now to reverse autism. And I just want to mention another supplement. You may be familiar with Dr. Zach Bush. He's working with farmers to regenerate microbes and soil organisms where we grow our crops. And this supplement has been the subject of 12 years of clinical research. It's still ongoing. And in our bodies, we have 10 microbes for every cell. So we're more microbes than we are us. And these microbes too have a frequency. And if you take a probiotic, even though you may be low in that particular species or whatever is in the probiotic, may be beneficial in the short term because it's doing something your own microbes aren't doing. But it's not your own. It doesn't contain your DNA. And this is why it only stays in the body for a maximum of 72 hours. And then those microbes will come out in the stool. The great thing about Ion Gut is that it encourages you to grow your own microbes, the ones you need, and the right ratios. It also increases uptake and delivery of nutrients, heals leaky gut, and protects against glyphosate. Cells learn to protect themselves against it, and we can't avoid it even if we're eating organically. It has antioxidant effects through direct electron delivery, so it's supporting the living matrix as well. It raises glutathione levels. Glutathione is the body's primary antioxidant. It's very difficult to supplement glutathione because it's made of 3 amino acids, which get split, broken down in the stomach. So this is a very good way of raising glutathione levels and overcoming that problem. It regulates mood and improves cognition because it balances the biome in the brain. And of course, anyone with autism or any form of neurological disease or dementia will have pathogenic microbes in the brain. And it also comes as a sinus spray, which is particularly helpful for people who have neurological conditions And also if you get sinusitis and seasonal allergies, because it balances methylation in the nose, so it protects against allergies, and it would get directly to the brain from being sprayed in the nose. And again, it reverses autism. Children become verbal on this, but take it very slowly because you could get die-off. After 5 to 7 days, people notice the stool is bulkier, and that's because the bad guys are coming out and the good guys are establishing themselves. So what else can you do to support the living matrix? There's just a few things I'm mentioning here in no particular order. Hydrate with pure structured water. Filtration does not remove the frequency of toxins. As we've seen, water carries the memory. So if you filter the toxins out of the water, the body gets the frequency of the toxins. And so you need to do something to restructure that water and take that memory out. And there are various things that you can do. The life alignment water card, you can add homeopathic spring water to the water. You can use an analema water wand, which crystallizes the water. Protect against EMRs. This is the Wi-Fi and radiation from phones. Follow seasonal and circadian rhythms. The body takes its information also from the food that you're eating. Spend at least an hour a day in nature. And all of us have trapped emotions. All of us have been traumatized in the past. So working to release that with one of the energy modalities and working on our work-life balance and so on, doing things we enjoy, all help us generate a higher frequency because we feel better. Listening to music and eating coherent foods. So if your matrix is healthy, you will be healthy. Movement and massage, energy work, eating high frequency foods, organically grown, some raw food in the diet, support the biome, do some grounding, be exposed to sunlight, get good quality sleep, exercise to move everything around. And the polarity of the sleeping position, we're supposed to sleep with our head facing north and our feet facing south, but most of us can't move our beds in our bedrooms. So you can use magnets and put the North Pole at the head of your bed and the South Pole at the south, at your feet. You can take, if you're taking supplements, try to take ones made from food, ones that aren't synthetic, because as Pop found, the body takes information from food. So if you're taking a synthetic supplement, it's not going to be so effective or so well recognized by the body. And breastfeeding is so much more than just conveying nutrients. Breast milk also conveys environmental and ancestral information. It contains feel-good hormones for bonding. And if you're not breastfed, Eileen Day McCusack, the lady who's the sound therapist, discovered a little wound on the outside of the aura on babies who had never been breastfed. And things like Qigong, meditation, and yoga have their effect not only on our physical body, but on our living matrix and on our energy field as well. And there's a good body of research that's been published, and these are just a few of the beneficial effects. They stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. They're calming. They inhibit the production of adrenaline and cortisol. They activate unused parts of the brain. They raise neurotransmitter levels, particularly the calming ones. They boost the immune system. they boost synovial fluid in the joints, and they lower blood pressure. They also increase levels of T cells, and they can activate parts of the brain that previously showed no activity. I'm just going to mention some of the books that I used for research. Lynn McTaggart's classic, The Field, that came out 22 years ago. Each chapter looks at a different scientist. And James Oshman, his Energy Medicine, a very heavy-going book, but he wanted to know, as a physicist and as a biochemist, how come energy medicine worked? He couldn't explain it. And he set himself a huge task in researching and publishing how these different energy systems work therapeutically. And 180 Degrees, this is a book I would recommend everybody reads. I'm halfway through it, I can't put it down. It gives you a much broader context on everything that's happening in the world today, including medicine. And it really sets in context what's going on at the moment. And it invites critical thinking, and it goes into the realms of free energy and finance and history and all sorts of really interesting things, including how language has been corrupted and used for control. Other books that I found really interesting, Eastern Body, Western Mind. This explains the chakra system and the different developmental stages in terms of Jungian psychology and what you can do to balance your chakras. Information Medicine is written by two scientists who were able to reverse cancer by playing the frequency of embryonic cells to cancer cells. And Electric Body, Electric Health is one of Eileen Day McCusac's books. And if you want to access this energy field yourself, this book tells you how. Your higher consciousness is connected to all knowledge in the field, and your subconscious knows why you've got symptoms, where your traumas are held and what they are. It knows why you're ill and how you can heal. And this book explains a very simple testing method that you can use on yourself and to test other people to decode the hidden cause of your symptoms, and an easy technique where you just run your hand or a magnet along the central meridian whilst you've brought up to the surface a particular emotion, a part of the body, and so on. And you can just clear it. I love the fact that it's simple. I love the fact that it's empowering. And I love the fact that it works. And throughout the book, you can find many, many case histories of spectacular recoveries. And you can also find him on YouTube. So I'm going to finish by paraphrasing Lynn McTaggart. For healing to occur, energy has to be involved, and this is why. Communication doesn't occur in the visible world of Newton, but in the subatomic world of Heisenberg. An energetic substructure underpins the universe that is essentially a recording medium of everything, providing a means for everything to be in communication with everything else. So I hope in this brief presentation I've been able to show that our bodies are in communication all the time. We have an energy field around us that is in communication with other people and with our environment, and that we're part of a universe that is in communication as well, and that we're indivisible from all of this energetically. We're not an isolated energy, and this is a much more life-enhancing view of reality compared to the Newtonian chaotic universe, body as a machine, and so on, and things are just random. And Newton, by the way, was very much into alchemy and energy, but that part has been conveniently forgotten. So we are a holographic part of the universe. You are not in the universe, you are the universe, an intrinsic part of it. Ultimately, you're not a person, but a focal point where the universe is becoming conscious of itself. What an amazing miracle. Thank you very much. I hope I haven't blinded everyone with science. My intention was to just show the science is there, and to give you confidence, if you haven't already, to explore or even learn to practice one of the energy modalities. And I'm very happy to take any questions.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Eve.
Thank you.
That was pretty gripping. So thank you so much. From the chats, a question: would this rebalance my gut?
I assume you're asking about ion gut. Yes, because it's about self-healing. So it's giving the body the tools to heal itself. But if you have a gut problem, it's also a good idea to find out if there are any energy blocks there, any emotions held there, and also to look at diet, if there's anything in the diet that could be causing a gut problem as well.
Yeah, I mean, beautifully, there is more than one thing that we can actually do to improve
Yes.
aspect of our physical health, which is super.
Yes, absolutely.
So David has hand up for a question. Lovely. Would you like to unmute yourself? And then we'll come to you,
Yeah,
Kevin.
good evening. Yeah, good evening, Eve. And good evening, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Dave Mitchell. I've been part of the Freedom Movement for quite a while now. And I also liberate computers for Microsoft. But I'm the guy that's got the gut problem. Now, what happened was in 2016, I had a pulmonary embolism on my lungs, right? And I was rushed into, I actually nearly died. And on the back of that, I should never have had the COVID jabs because of the risk of clotting. Now, what happened was I actually listened to somebody I shouldn't have listened to, and I took 2 jabs, didn't I, in 2021. And since the second one, I've had nothing but gut problems. I've had 6 colonic sessions at a natural health clinic. That's not fixed it. I'd take cider vinegar. That's not fixed it. I've took every supplement known to man and woman, and it's nothing has fixed it. And it's been going on now for nearly a year. And I'm starting to wonder now on the back of this, if the frequency medicine is the answer, because I need to get my body back into balance.
I think first of all, I'm really, really sorry to hear that. I think all treatments should have an energetic component. I'm not saying energy can do everything, but taking the jab in homeopathic potency or going to a life alignment practitioner who will have a protocol for detoxing things like vaccines may be helpful. And I think, you know, the things that I recommended earlier would also be helpful. But obviously there's something wrong with the frequency. The gut needs a new healthy frequency by the sound of it.
Yeah, I've tried absolutely everything, and to be honest, I'm running out of ideas.
I'm so sorry.
I think they've actually altered my body on the quantum level, which is why I can't fix it. That's what the vaccine's done.
Right.
Because somebody it was actually somebody from the People's Health Alliance, they explained to me that these vaccines were developed using quantum computing technology. And the mathematics is so drilled down in so many decimal places that the technology we've got access to can't fix it. And if we just get it wrong by 1 digit, you could actually kill someone, apparently.
I don't know about that, but I do know that energy can be very gentle. And if you go to a good practitioner, then I think things can be done energetically, which may be the component that's missing for you at the moment.
The doctors don't want to know, the NHS don't want to know, they won't even acknowledge it.
No. But the ion gut will help boost your immune system, and it will help detoxify. So I think it would be a good place to start, but I would urge you to only take a few drops and go very easy with anything that you're doing, because your body is already dealing with something. It's already in crisis, and so you don't want to go in with all guns blazing. You want to just use gentle treatments that are going to enable the body to heal itself.
So thank you for that, David, and good luck in your exploring. Hopefully you will find your solution. So good luck with that.
Yeah, well, I'm keen for the health hubs to get going.
Yeah,
Because I put £10 a month into the Health Alliance every month.
that's right.
I am so keen to get these health hubs going, because
Fabulous.
we need an alternative to the NHS. The NHS just doesn't work.
Sure.
Pharmaceuticals
Absolutely.
doesn't work.
Yeah, and we, that could be a whole topic of itself. But thank you so much, David, and we all wish you absolutely the best, and hopefully we'll hear good news from you. So thank you again, Kevin.
Oh, thank you, PHA. Thank you, Eve. I think everybody in this room is just saying, "Wow!" This information is very revealing. I'm a retired naturopath. I use terahertz frequency in a lot of my patients that are still coming back to me. And my sort of question would be that sort of terahertz quantum frequency, which is close to the far infrared. Eve, have you had any experience with it?
With far infrared?
With the terahertz frequency, which is in between far infrared and microwave.
No, I haven't. Have you?
Yeah, I'm using the Prife terahertz frequency wand, and in connection with David's thing, I've been unvaccinated because, like I think a lot of people in the room, we've done our research, and I haven't got scientific double-blind placebo studies to prove it, but I'm finding using that particular device on people that the doctors can't solve my problem, just like David keeps saying. It seems to be getting into that energy field, energy frequency that, I don't know, but it kind of works.
Wow.
It is something
Perhaps
that
you could put some information in the chat.
Sure, I've got a website there that I could pop in there where if people want more information. Is there anybody else in the room that has used terahertz frequency? I don't want to sort of do it. I guess I could do a separate PHA presentation at some stage on terahertz frequency.
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea, Kevin. And we can give it the time that it deserves, so that it can be fully explored.
Yeah,
so,
I could spend another hour just asking Eve questions. I'm in the southern hemisphere, and I haven't quite. Maybe I could answer my own question. Sleep in the northern hemisphere with the head facing north. I've never sort of really dug into it. In the Southern Hemisphere, do you reverse it? Okay, it's just a simple question. But
yeah, I don't know about the
keep me
Southern
on a toes.
Hemisphere.
Excellent. So thank you, Kevin, for your contribution. Fascinating. I'll be making a note and having a look at that website. Thank you again. Anybody else? Any questions? I had a tiny one. You mentioned Rupert Sheldrake's banned TED Talk. Do you know why it was banned? I'm always interested when things are banned.
Well, he was talking about the morphogenic field, and it was a very challenging concept, even though it's been scientifically proven. The mainstream is very resistant to all of this. And so they're trying to maintain a narrative, and he also he does question some of the scientific dogma. So I mean, he's never been afraid to speak out, but also his book is nice to read. It's autobiographical. And he's, I heard him speak many years ago, and he's got a sense of humor. He's a very accessible scientist, and he's not afraid to challenge.
Excellent. Fabulous. And Kevin's asked, can we put the band link into chat? Do you know it off the top of your head, Eve? If not, we can, when the video goes out, we can pause the page.
Sorry, what were you asking?
The link to the band chat for Rupert's.
Oh, right. No.
If not, we can pause the video when we, because I know I'll be watching it again because it is so content rich. So yeah. And maybe I'll watch that and we'll get it to you, Kevin. We'll get it to you. Fabulous. So anybody else, any other questions? No? Well, I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. Fantastic talk. Thank you so much, Eve. Thank you for giving us
your pleasure
and your expertise. And as I say, I will be going and watching that again because there is so much. And beautifully, it's reminded me of so much because I think we need reminders as well. So fabulous. We've got that and we can continue watching it. So thank you so much. And may I wish everybody a wonderful rest of Wednesday and look forward to seeing you on the next PHA fabulous talk from our generous contributors. So thank you, Eve. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And good night.
Good night.
Good night.